morning, Essex.
Good morning.
Great to see you all. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Big round of applause for Happy Mother's Day, please. Whether you are on site or online, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, we are glad you have joined us for this day of worship this morning. We would love to know that you were here this morning. If you would like, we have a Welcome to Worship book in the lobby. If you would like to sign our book and get more information about our church, you can also do that online at essexucc.org. I have just a few announcements to highlight for you in our bulletin. If you would pull that out and take a look on the back of the bulletin, you'll see a number of announcements. Our continuing Brick by Brick fundraiser will continue. We've completed our project on the Methodist Hill entrance, but now we will use that Brick by Brick fund to continue ongoing improvement projects for our church, for our grounds, and also the parsonage. So we're going to be raising some extra money for our parsonage roof project as well. So you can use your Brick by Brick fund on our online giving page to support that. You see a couple save the dates. On Saturday, August 19th, we'll have a jazz concert on the Green. On Wednesday, September 6th, we're going to be going together as a church to Jersey Boys. That's going to be a fundraiser and a great opportunity for fellowship at Ivoryton Playhouse. There'll be some more information coming on that. Coming up in May, we will be collecting our Strengthening the Church offering. That's a special offering for our denomination that continues to help our church become a multiracial, multicultural church, accessible to all, funding leadership development, youth and young adult ministries, and as well as supporting new and renewing congregations. There's some more information about this offering that will be in our lobby. If you would like to pick that up, that contribution will be on Sunday, May 28th. And finally, one that's not in your bulletin is a special opportunity called Cookies for Confirmands. More people than Dud should laugh at that. Cookies for Confirmands. We are, as you know, joining together with Westbrook and Old Sagebrook Congregational churches for a joint confirmation program. And we are going to be celebrating confirmation on June 4th during the service, which will be followed by the opportunity to have a banquet for celebrating our confirmands and their families. And each church will be contributing something to that meal. So we have been asked if we would like to contribute some desserts or cookies or brownies, whatever it is if you like to bake. If you like to bake, if you like to shop, you don't have to bake them, you can buy them. But we have a sign-up sheet in the lobby if you would like to help celebrate our confirmands that day as well. So today is Mother's Day, and we gather today, and we remember all of our mothers. We remember those who have been like mothers to us as well. We remember our teachers and our caretakers, anyone who has spoken into our lives in that way. And each and every Mother's Day and Father's Day, I like to point out that while we typically use fatherly imagery or masculine pronouns to refer to God, there are a number of biblical images that come to us that are motherly or feminine, as well as this one in Isaiah. As a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you, says the Lord. And I think most importantly, it's important to remember that technically speaking, we know that God is neither male nor female. God isn't masculine or feminine. We're told in the scriptures that God is spirit, that God is beyond gender, but represented as having characteristics of both male and female. We know that because we are all of us, male and female, created in the image of God. God is referred to as having fatherly strength and power, as well as motherly tenderness and compassion. Our opening hymn actually describes God with both of those terms as well. It describes God as a shield and defender, but also offering bountiful care and tender mercies. So as we begin our worship this morning, let's turn to number 26 in our black hymnal, We worship you, God. We'll sing verses 1, 4, and 5. Let's rise together in body or spirit as we begin our worship this morning. Peace be with you. Before you sit down, let me invite you to turn to those around you and greet them this morning with the peace of Christ. Peace be with you, son. Now you can sit down. That's great. These guys are here. That's great. So during our time of prayer this morning, I hope we can all remember our moms. Moms are very special to us as well. And typically speaking, Mother's Day is a happy day. Typically speaking. But I'm sure in a group this large, maybe it's not a great day. Maybe it's a difficult day. Maybe you never had the chance to know your mom. Maybe you always dreamed of being a mom, but for some reason or another weren't able to make that happen. So as we remember our moms, as we concentrate and think about that, there are a number of other items in your prayer request, a number of other names that are there that would love to have you praying for them. Folks who are in the midst of the trials of life, in the midst of, as we'll hear in our text, the storms of life. If there is something that you would like to share with your faith family this morning, a way we can support you in your life with our prayers, we would love to do that. Are there ways that we can remember you in our prayers this week, in the days ahead? Anything you would like to share, either on a sad note or a difficult note, or maybe a good note, maybe a happy note?
Visited my mother yesterday with my twin brother, and she's 94. She's in hospice now.
Thank you, Rick. Anything else? Let's take a moment and bow our heads, shall we, and pray together as we remember the situations that are near and dear to our heart. Oh God, this morning we are grateful for our moms, as well as all those who have cared for us and helped us and taught us and helped us to become the people that we are today. We're grateful for their love, for their care, for their concern. So we lift up and remember those who have given us life, those who have loved us, those who have taught and nurtured us and been like mothers to us on our journey. We're also grateful for the gifts of family and friends and the ability to be with them, perhaps for the first time in a special way on this weekend. We're grateful for all those whose lives are closely linked with ours. And now, Lord, we pause to remember those who have specifically asked for our prayers this day. We lift up the names listed in our bulletin, those situations that are heavy on our hearts, perhaps even too heavy to speak out loud. And so on behalf of all those who seek healing in body, mind, or spirit, we now silently remember all those who have asked for our prayers this day. And now, Lord, we pray together the prayer your Son Jesus taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now as our kids go off to Sunday school, our choir will come forward for this morning's anthem. So you're about to hear Jesus' closing words in the Sermon on the Mount. He's making his case. He's wrapping everything together. These are his closing arguments for why it's important to follow him and how to follow him. So listen to these words as they come to us from the scriptures this morning.
Then Jesus said, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise person who built a house on a solid rock. The rain came down, the rivers rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on solid rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish person who built a house on sand. The rain came down, the rivers rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and finally it fell with a crash." When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were surprised and amazed at his teaching.
Thank you, Mary Lawrence. Let's go back, first of all, to that anthem, the gift of love. Perfect anthem on Mother's Day, right? Moms are awesome. Moms are awesome. In the From Rev Dave this week, in our weekly e-news, I asked you to potentially bring a memory of your mom, something that comes to your mind that maybe either typifies your mom or stands out as a great memory. Who's got a good memory of their mom? Who's got a great mom story? Oh, this is what happens when you get homework, folks. It's Mother's Day. You're going to get homework.
Mother raised 5 boys, okay? And she's smaller than all of us. She's very small. She's about Delsey's size, okay? And she was brought up in an Italian household in Portland, Maine, as a young girl. And when she would come up to us and say to us, you know, "You've done something wrong? Answer up." And we would say, you know, either yes or no, and she would go, "You want a fanage?" Fanage is a hit in the back of the head, Italian. That's my mother.
As I was saying, moms are awesome, aren't they? Whether it's a fanage or something else.
My mother taught me how to smoke a corncob pipe at the age of 5 with corn silk and hayseed.
All right, folks, let's all go home, shall we? Child abuse and tobacco abuse, and it's only 2 minutes into the sermon so far. How about that? Note to self, don't ask for great mom stories next year. Good. At the risk of really digging myself into a hole, any other good mom stories? How about this? Oh, but Fred's got to go. We got to give one to Fred.
Since I'm here for a day or two, the gift of music. My mother taught me to play the piano when I was about 7.
That's great. Great, Fred. Thank you. That's a great gift. So, and speaking of, we're going to use that as a pivot point. Your mom taught you how to play piano. What are some other things that your mom taught you? Do you have any great things that your mom taught you besides how to smoke a corncob pipe? Other things, great lessons that your mom taught you maybe. Tammy?
She taught me how to cook.
Excellent, absolutely. Taught you how to cook. Hold on a second, Judy. We're getting over there. We're coming. So good to see you, Peter. Good morning, my friend. How are you? Here you go, Judy.
Well, she taught me, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And when I was about 13, and I would hang around where she was working, this fella I kind of had this crush on came in with new glasses on, horn-rimmed glasses, and I was around him all day. At the end of the day, when everybody's checking out, he says to me, "You didn't mention my new glasses." And I say, My mother said, if I don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
This is a rough crowd this morning. What got into you people? My goodness gracious me. Just in case, do you have one, Cindy? You got one? So I'm gonna risk it. We're gonna do one more, Cindy. Go ahead.
My grandson and his fiance were with us yesterday, and as he came, he said to me, well, actually, he brought me flowers, and then as he left, he said, "Thank you for having my mother."
Oh, see, that's what I was looking for. Thank you, Cindy. That's great. And just in case there was not a lot of participation, I wrote down a couple. Don't run with scissors. Wait 15 minutes after you eat before you swim. A lot of head nods there. That was a good one. Obviously, look both ways before crossing the street. This one has come in handy, though, numerous times. It was my mom that taught me how to drive. And she says, if you're ever pulling out from a stop sign, right, and going either right or left, and this oncoming car here has their blinker on, don't pull out in front of them until they start to make that turn, because their blinker could be on for the next turn. And more times than not, I tell you, I've had guys just go flying by me with their blinker on. Well, those were wonderful. Smoking, that's wonderful. Not insulting people, that's all very good. What these aphorisms, what these lessons from our parents, and I'm sure we have some from our fathers as well, help us do is it helps us to survive in life, right? And thrive. And in the Bible, those sort of helpful insights or life lessons are called wisdom literature. That's what they're referred to in the Bible as, wisdom literature. Proverbs chapter 1 opens in verses 8 or 9 with these verses. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching, for they are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. So those life lessons, wisdom literature has been described and defined in different ways, but a few of them that really make sense to me and help me is they describe how the world works. Wisdom literature. It helps us how to think, cope, and succeed, someone has written, as we reflect on life and how to navigate it successfully. The book of Proverbs, for instance, is one of those books that's classified as wisdom literature. And when you hear Proverbs, this isn't in the Bible, but if you think of Ben Franklin, right? A lot of his Proverbs are what you might call wisdom literature. There's a number of books in the Bible that are called wisdom literature. The book of Ecclesiastes, the book of Job, a bunch of the Psalms fall into the category of wisdom literature. And while typically and technically wisdom literature is found in the Hebrew scriptures, the Christian scriptures contain writings and texts that fall into that category as well, certainly in the tradition and style of wisdom literature, or putting into practice the things that we know and learn. The book of James, for instance, is sort of a classic in the wisdom literature tradition. Many of Jesus' parables and certainly the Sermon on the Mount that we have been working our way through. If you remember, there's two versions of the Sermon on the Mount. We've talked about them a little differently. We've been in the Gospel of Matthew, where there are 3 chapters of the Sermon on the Mount, but the book of Luke also has a version of the Sermon on the Mount that only has 1 chapter, but this passage in both of them begin in very similar ways. In Luke, this passage starts with one of my favorite verses. Jesus says, "Why do you call me Lord and not do what I say?" Right? It could be like a mom saying that, right? "Why do you call me mom and not do what I say? You want a finage? What are you going to do?" You're going to get a finage, but we put into practice those things. So that's how Luke starts it. And in Matthew's version, you heard the same thing in sort of a slightly different way, right? Jesus says, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise person who built their house on a rock. The rains came, the flood came, and the wind beat against the house, but the house stood firm because it had a good foundation. That's quintessential wisdom literature language. This good builder puts into practice techniques that will help his house stand firm. And if anybody knows about a good foundation, I'll bet it's my buddy Bob the Builder back there, right? You gotta have a firm foundation for your house.
No good without one.
No good without one. That's exactly right. That firm foundation holds that house in the midst of the storm. And Jesus is a master at using metaphor and simile and analogies to help us understand, to help us get quickly to the heart of a matter. In our text this morning, Jesus gives us blueprints for construction, how to construct a good house, how to construct a good life, right, that's built on a solid foundation. I can remember the first day in English class when we were looking at metaphors and discovering what metaphors and similes and analogies were. I like to call it, the thing is not the thing. Right? Jesus isn't talking about a house, right? He's talking about our lives. The thing is not the thing. And movies are typically great examples of the power of metaphor. If you're ever scrolling through the 900 channels you have on your television and you can find nothing to watch, just speak into your voice remote, if you have one of those voice remotes, a movie from 2001 called My Life as a House. Great. I know you've never heard of it. That's why I'm telling you to watch it. But it's a great metaphor and a perfect fit into this text this morning, because there's this guy who sets out to rebuild and repair the old broken down family home, right? But he's also setting out to rebuild and repair the broken down family as well. It's a great metaphor. It's a great way to understand this text in a new way. And some of the same things happened in this parable that happened in that movie. There's a builder, right, who's setting out, and he's going to use Jesus' words as the foundation, set out to build a house and life that can withstand the uncertainty of life, the chances and changes of the world. It's fascinating that this text doesn't say that those things won't come, right? The rain, the winds, and the flood, they're coming. There's no doubt that you will have that in your life, okay? The rains, the winds, and the flood are going to come. I was having, Mary Lawrence did a great job at reading our scripture this morning. I could tell she spent a lot of time wrestling with this text over the weekend and trying to figure out what it means and get to the deep theological significance of it. And when she saw me in the hallway this morning, she grabbed me and said, "You know what this reminds me of? The 3 little pigs." I thought, and I said, "You know what, Mary Lawrence? Maybe you should be preaching this passage this morning." Because think about it. the first two houses, right? Do you remember the story? The first two houses. One's built of straw, one's built of sticks. And the big bad wolf, maybe that's the rain and the wind and the floods of life, right? But in this analogy, it's the big bad wolf that huffs and puffs and what? Blows the house down. That's exactly right. But the house that was made out of brick, right? Or the house that was built on a good foundation, that's the house that stands. I had no idea before I came to church this morning that the Three Little Pigs was wisdom literature. Thank you for that, Mary Lawrence. That's fantastic. But that rain and the flood and the wind happens to all of us, right? We can't escape that. That's just how life happens. If you remember just 2 chapters earlier in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus told us as much. He said the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. The sun shines on both the righteous and the unrighteous, right? We all have to get through life. And the flip side of the good builder is the bad builder. Jesus says anyone who hears these words of mine and doesn't put them into practice is like a person who built their house on sand. I don't need to go back to Bob and ask Bob what that's like. Because we all kind of live near the beach, right? We've all seen erosion just from waves. I actually lived, I don't know if you remember, during Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. Do you remember that iconic picture from New Jersey of the Ferris wheel that was literally just sitting in the ocean? Do you remember that picture? Well, I'll show you later, Celia, don't worry. I'll send it to you. That picture was probably less than a mile from one of the first churches that I pastored at. So if you live near the shore, if you live near the sand, you know what that wind and rain and flood can do. There was one part of the Barrier Island in New Jersey that got breached, and the water connected the ocean and the bay and just washed houses away. Houses, you would go back and look and say, well, where did that house go? And you'd look at a foundation, that all illustrations are going to fall apart eventually, right? It wasn't the foundation, but it was the wind that took this one away. You'd say, where'd that house go? And you'd look down the street, and it would be right down the street. Just sitting in the middle of the street. And there's other houses you'd go and you'd look for, and you'd say, where'd that house go? And they said, we can't find it. We can't find any of it. The winds and the rain and the floods came and took down that house. Think for a moment about the rain and the wind and the floods in your life that Jesus is trying to help us guard against. What are those things that could potentially bring your house down? I'm going to describe this picture for the choir quickly. There's a picture of a house that's built on some rock, and you can see the storm gathering offshore, right? You can, oh, you know what I can do? Watch this. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it, but it kind of looks like that right there. All right, you see the house and the clouds. This, oh, look at that. Oh, I did blow that up. Look at that. All right. The storms are gathering. They're there. They're coming. Make no mistake about it. And I hate to do this, But if the storm hasn't come yet, go grab your umbrella. It just happens. That's the way life works. We all have to deal with something. Everybody's something is different, but it's coming. The wisdom tradition in both the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures are designed to help prepare us for that time. Jesus' words, he says as much, are help to prepare us wrestle with those mysteries of life and be able to navigate life successfully. Jesus says, when you take these words of mine, when you take my teachings, and just think of all the ones we've heard just in the Sermon on the Mount series, right? Be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Don't worry, don't judge, don't kill. When you fast, when you pray, when you give, remember to remove the plank from your own eye before you look for the speck in your neighbor's eye. By the way, love your neighbor. And again, by the way, love your enemy. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Jesus says, when you take these words of mine and put them into practice, and I think probably, in the context of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is probably saying, the words you just heard, that's what everybody's context is going to be. I just heard Jesus talking. Jesus says, when you take these words of mine and put them into practice, I think they're the words of the Sermon on the Mount, but I think we can extrapolate and infer that we're probably talking about all of Jesus' words, right? When you take Jesus' words and put them into practice. When I was growing up, it was the red letter words. Do you remember those? Did you ever have a red letter Bible growing up? Words of nobody had that? Words of Jesus in red. That was a special Bible because you could see exactly what Jesus was saying. When you do those red words, when you put those red words into practice, the resulting house, right? The resulting life will be strong. It will be built on a good foundation. Because wisdom literature, along with those wonderful proverbs from our mom and our dads that taught us how to navigate life, that's what wisdom literature is designed to do, help us navigate life. And navigating life, I think, is a great image or a great metaphor for a town with what I just confirmed earlier this morning has 6 yacht clubs or marinas. That's, I guess, 1 for every 1,000 people, right? But think about those difficult waters that we face when we're out in a boat, right? If we're navigating life. Think about the shallows. Think about the rocks that are under the water and the different currents. What do you need to operate a boat successfully? You need good charts, right? Charts that will help you navigate the river and the channel and the cove and the bay and the sound. It will help you anticipate where the trouble may be. Doesn't get rid of the trouble, just helps you get ready for the trouble. It's not going to foolproof us from pain or sorrow, but it prepares us for when those difficulties in life come. Because we know that in the storms of life, no matter what, that God is with us to comfort us, to strengthen us, and to get us through that storm, to the next sunny and beautiful day. Let's pray. God, we give you thanks for your presence with us, especially in the difficult times when the proverbial rain, wind, and floods seem to assault us. So we look to you, and we look to Jesus' words, and we strive to put them into practice so that we might build our houses, our lives on good foundation, on solid ground. Amen. Please. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Talking about Mother's Day, stories of mothers, and the trials that we face. So Logan, you know my Logan, he was born a few days before Hurricane Sandy. And we came home. There were a few little things that went on during the delivery that, we were just keeping an eye on things. Anyhow, so we get home. At the time, we were living not too far from the ocean in Old Saybrook. And I don't know, maybe a couple hours after we had gotten home, the firefighters knocked on our door and said, "You need to evacuate." And for a few minutes, we thought, well, we'll just ride it out. We'll see how it goes. But then given what had happened at the hospital, we had this brand new baby, we figured, we probably should evacuate. But where should we go? And then my mother-in-law, Joanne, said, "You should come to my house over in Waterford, Connecticut." And so that's what we did. We packed up the dog and my newborn baby, brand new mom, and Doug and I, and we went to Waterford. And while it felt like the world around us was falling apart, it was just crazy watching everything unfold on the television. I had one of the most amazing and wonderful weeks of my entire life that I'll never forget, and it was built on the foundation of love that my mother-in-law had instilled in all of us and her son.
And that's a Mother's Day story. That's a sermon story. That hit exactly as you said. That hit on all the bases. Thank you for that. This church, what we try to do is we try to be that for others as well. We try to be a safe place, a refuge. So if people are having a disaster, we try to reach out with love and compassion and finances. We try to teach our kids those lessons, those life lessons as well, that wisdom literature. And everything we do here is made possible by your generous support. There's a QR code in your bulletin. If you would like to give electronically this morning, if you're watching online, the QR code will be on your screen in just a few moments. So as the choir comes and gets in place, we will gratefully receive our morning offering. Oh, I'm sorry. The choir's not getting in place, but we will still receive our morning offering. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, may these gifts help us to help others build strong houses, strong lives that can withstand and deal with the storms of life as we seek shelter in your presence and in your love. Amen. Thank you, guys. Our closing hymn this morning contains words taken right from our text. If you ever look up at the hymn number up in the upper left, you'll see a text, a scripture text, that's right next to those hymn numbers that will tell you where the hymns come from. So this morning, we will sing in every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. Number 403 in your black hymnal, my hope is built on nothing less. We'll sing verses 1, 2, and 4. You may be seated. Aaron gave me a perfect segue to my benediction this morning. We didn't even compare notes. But I'm mindful that in Jesus' parable, there's another builder, right? There's another builder in these stories. One who's in trouble, one who's in danger, one whose house is collapsed. It's a picture of that story we just talked about. This is the house built on rock right here. Oh, I have no idea about that. This is the house built on rock, and here's the house that just collapsed. But you see the guy that lost everything in the flood. Yep, and he's got nothing because the flood destroyed it. This is a builder who, in the words of my favorite theologian, Bob Dylan, could use a little shelter from the storm, right? And that's what we can do, folks. As we put Jesus' words into practice, as we live out the words of the Sermon on the Mount, of loving our neighbor, we as individuals, as a church, help others build on a firm foundation. And we can indeed be a shelter from the storm for those in need, just as Jesus calls us to do. Amen. Go in peace. Happy Mother's Day.